What's going on, everybody? We are here for the Wave It Fair podcast. And tonight we're going to talk about Rookies of the Year. The Jackie Robinson Award, arguably the most important, not only Rookie of the Year, but player, period. I look forward to this conversation. And as I do, I'm going to send it over to Quinn Rollo.
Good evening, folks. Looking forward to discussing this topic and figuring out which players in the recent past that have earned this award have lived up to that reward, that award in their subsequent career. I'm sure I'll have some takes that will either annoy or outrage my compatriots here. But yeah, I'm Quinn Rollo and looking forward to this discussion. Take it away, Greco.
I'm Greco, and I'm excited every year about the Rookie of the Year award. And part of that is because of the history of the award. I think that having Jackie Robinson um, being the nameplate of it is um, probably one of the smartest things that the MLB ever did. And um, I will tell you that part of my enthusiasm for Rookie of the Year is, as we're going to go through in a minute, how many times my team has shown up in Rookie of the Year because of how many times my team's had to start over, right?
Hmm.
Um, so I'm excited about this because I think it's wonderful. And the reason why we're actually talking about Rookie of the Year today is that's pretty much, aside from Manager of the Year, the only one that's actually really been announced so far, aside from the MLB All MLB team. And this year we had Paul Skeens from the Pittsburgh Pirates, which I don't think there was too much debate on whether or not he was going to be the guy to take it away this year. There was certainly some worthy folks in there, but I think that he was just pretty dominant. And to be in the same sentence as the Cy Young Award as well was pretty exciting. And it's exciting to see a team like the Pittsburgh Pirates have such a piece, and hopefully he sticks around for a bit.
Well,
Um,
they hang on to him.
yeah, yeah. Did you guys hear about the contest they're running for
No,
one of his baseball cards?
I did not.
Mm-mm.
Actually, I shouldn't even say it's a contest. So, Topps has released um, a product, and in that product is a one of one. So there's only one of these. It's a autographed relic card, and it is a relic that is a sizable piece, and it actually is a part of an emblem on his opening, what like his first game ever in the majors. It was a piece of his jersey from that day.
Oh,
And the Pirate,
Skeens, you mean?
yeah, I'm sorry, yes, for Skeens, yeah. And the Pirates have offered that if anybody gets that card, whoever gets that card, um, could sell it back to the Pirates or sell it to the Pirates. They never owned it. Sell it to the Pirates, and in exchange for that, they would give the person who gets the card 30 years of season tickets.
Wow.
Yeah. Skeens memorabilia. They would get I want to say like fan day with them. They would be able to train and take batting practice with the team. They would be able to I want to say it was something with spring training as well. There's a number of different things that they're offering um, for that one card. Livy Dunn. I don't know if you guys know who Livy Dunn is.
oh.
She's Paul Skeen's girlfriend, and she's an LSU gymnast,
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
and she's beautiful. Um, and it's not like you're going to get a date out of this anyway, but she's actually offered to allow or have that person watch a game with her in the luxury box that she sits in with them. Um, so it's quite. I've never heard of a team hyping a card like this before. I mean,
Eesh. That sounds like basically like a real life version of what Willy Wonka did. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate
yeah,
Factory.
the golden
Golden
ticket.
ticket.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's interesting because one of the things we're going to be talking about is the value of these players going forward, and somebody who owns this card being a 101 right now, it has a lot of value. But
mm,
in 5 years, if Skeens doesn't stay as relevant as he is, or gets hurt a lot, or this card could tumble in value. So do you take this deal? Do you renegotiate? Do you try to sell it to somebody else and make some money and
mm.
then buy the experiences that they're offering with the cash? There's a lot of different things going on with this. So I
That
thought
is
that was
quite
interesting.
that's quite an interesting dilemma to find yourself in. So is it just kind of open ended now? Like, does any like no one has the card yet? Like, have they announced that the card is now in rotation, or does that
It
happen
is in
like soon?
rotation.
It is.
It is. It's in packs, gone out in boxes. I don't know if it's been pulled yet,
Mm.
but you know, it's out there. So um, pretty fascinating.
The only problem is you have to move to Pittsburgh.
You would,
Get 30
you
years of season tickets.
would. So maybe that's what somebody does. They get the Paul Skeens card and says, "Hey, you know what? It's for sale. People in Pittsburgh,"
Mm.
and create a
Right.
bidding war, and then buy. Well, so you figure 30 season ticket seasons for the Pirates. I mean, shit, you could probably get maybe 2 or 3 season tickets for the price of the Red Sox charge you. So, you know,
Damn.
With 80 games times, let's say,
yeah,
$30 a
240,
seat.
yeah, 2,400 games. You could probably go see 5 Red Sox games for that price.
Yeah.
So you're good.
Yeah. Imagine that.
Yeah. Um, so speaking of the AL East, the other gentleman in the
Mm.
American League, Luis Hill,
Hmm.
uh, he was the big winner. And I don't know about you folks, but I think that was a more contested Rookie of the Year race for the AL.
Yeah. Like his teammate was another one of the contenders, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, and I mean, and you also had guys like Heston Kjerstad. Um, I mean, you had some pretty significant folks
Mm.
who had an opportunity um, to be in contention here. I don't know. Give me 1 second. Does
Colton
anybody have the
Cowser
list?
was another one
Okay,
for the
for
Orioles.
national.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Cole Kaiser. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
He was another one that was in contention for the AL. Um, for the
Oh, yeah.
national for
Yep.
the
Colton
National
Cowser.
League, though, it kind of did
Moo!
look like Skeens was the consensus.
Yes.
Really, that there wasn't really much of anyone else that was really going to be considered with a freaking 1.96 ERA.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. Uh, one article that I'm reading up about that is that it's the lowest ERA ever recorded by a rookie in the live ball era, which is freaking insane,
Yeah. No, he was nasty.
especially for a rookie to like a legit rookie because he was drafted like less than a year before he appeared, right?
Yeah, he was just drafted last year,
Like
last
that
June.
never happens in baseball. That freaking never happens. At least not as far as I'm aware. Like, I mean, you tell me, Greco, is that Is that common? Usually, guys, you always hear about them marinating in the minors for at least a season or two.
It's happened a few times.
Yeah, it depends who it is.
Yeah, I mean, you think about like a Bryce Harper.
Mm, mm,
He was one of the guys that was kind of beelined up. And
mhm.
Steven Strasburg was
Oh
early.
yeah, Strasburg. That's right. That's right.
Um, I feel like you see it more with pitchers. I'm pretty
Mm.
sure your favorite guy too. Um, the baby face, the one who blew for the Yankees. Why am I drawing a
Oh,
blank?
friggin' Cole.
Yeah, yeah, Garrett Cole. I believe he was another one that came up pretty quick.
That
Um,
putz. Clearly, he needed to spend some more time in the minors to remember how to cover first.
clearly, clearly, yeah. So I believe that that's happened more frequently, especially now. I think that they're more likely to try to bring him up. Um,
Mm.
and I think we're going to see more of it after the big um, collective bargaining that we saw a couple years back. Because one of the things that was discussed was trying to incentivize teams to not keep guys down
Mm.
due to playing time and
Well, yeah,
starting the
service
clock and
time.
arbitration.
There's all those stupid shenanigans that teams would pull about like keeping guys up for a little bit, but then sending them down before they can log a year of service time, and then that just keeps them on that lower
Yep.
payroll for a longer amount of time. And yeah, that owners, as per usual, get shady with the way they manage their players.
Right. I mean, if you think about it, like you look at it like
Mm.
An Adley
Yeah.
Rush, Jackson Holiday, Gunnar Henderson, all those
Mm.
guys were recently drafted. I mean, Jackson Holiday was another guy who was
Yeah.
drafted last year with Skeens. Um, and he had that quick turnaround too. So I think you're going to see it more frequently.
It is interesting though that a guy like Heel was almost the opposite, where he had Tommy John, it looks like, and 26-year-old, so he was probably on the older side for a rookie of the year winner.
Yeah,
But hey, good for him. It's almost kind of like a quasi. It probably feels like a comeback player of the year award for him, given that he's been through Tommy John surgery. Even though you hear about those stories about guys coming back stronger or
hmm
better in some ways, that's always got to be a little scary when you're like, shit, like, am I going to come back and and still do what I can do? So good for him. See, I can give some nice platitudes to Yankee players. I have it in me.
because he hasn't done anything to you yet.
Yeah.
Wait, just wait, just wait. Um, all
Do you
right,
ever play a
so
meaningful game against the Yankees ever again?
Mm.
I think you will sooner than later. Um, but you know, we'll see. All right, so how we've talked about framing this discussion is kind of taking a look back. Um, you know, essentially 29 years. Um, and kind of having a discussion about the rookie of the year winners and how Mr. Rolo discussed their, I guess their merit as
Mhm.
far as getting the rookie of the year and how that actually panned out. How good are we, or not we, because we're not the ones who pick it, the folks who nominate and award these people rookie of the year, how well a rookie actually projects out through the life of their career. So we're just going to have a little discussion on that. And the first duo that we have a discussion on, gentlemen, is Ozzie Guillen. So why don't we
Mm.
start with him? Ozzie Guillen for the White Sox um, was 1985 AL Rookie of the Year. Um, and just to put some context on it, um, the folks who got subsequent votes. Some of these I'm going to have a hard time saying their names.
Mm.
Milwaukee Brewers when they were in the American League. Teddy Higuera. Not sure how
Remember him.
familiar I am with him.
Mm.
He threw a
He
no
got,
hitter, I think.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, it looks like his stats specifically, as a pitcher, um, seem to be worthy of some votes. He got 67 votes, and Guillen got 101. Ernie Riles, who I do remember his name, um, Abadai, McDowell, Stu
There's a name.
Kilhorn, yeah, Brian Fisher, Tom Henke, who I do remember, specifically in those Toronto teams. He was with
Yep.
Toronto for a while.
Closer.
Yeah, and Mark Salas, who I remember as well.
Mm.
So Ozzie Guillen as a player, I mean, we all remember him most recently as a manager. But thoughts on Ozzie Guillen as a player?
He was a good shortstop. Not a lot of power. Um, let's see.
I'd say he's a pretty prototypical shortstop though of that era.
Yep.
The pre Nomar, A Rod, thumpers at short. Certainly, I think the only one you could probably put in that category at the time was probably Al. Um, but yeah, serviceable career batting average. Um, nothing fantastic, but 264, which
Mm-hmm.
again was pretty standard for a shortstop back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. 3-time All-Star.
Yeah.
Won a Gold Glove in 1990.
Oh man, he was towards the end of his career.
Yeah.
I hadn't really seen many people have negative wars before.
Yeah, he ended up being a journeyman toward the end.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely someone who uh stands out more as a manager than he ever did as a player,
Yeah.
as far as I can recollect. I mean, obviously, East Coast bias, as I know Greco likes to rightfully accuse me of. And he played, with the exception of a few seasons there at the end in Baltimore. He was pretty much entirely a big fan with the White Sox. So I don't particularly recall seeing him play all that much, but I certainly remember him as a manager. Probably one of the more colorful characters in MLB for several years there.
Yeah, he's got a big mouth.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I will say that he was one of the more entertaining managers to watch.
Yep.
And whenever he's doing either a pregame or a postgame,
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't disappoint either when that's happening.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, so the other one in the National League was Vince Coleman.
Yep. Similar
Thoughts
type
on
of
Mr.
player.
Coleman? What's that?
Similar type of player.
Very much so.
Have hit the same exact number of home runs
Yep.
in their careers, 28.
Yeah. Another defensive-minded player. And just to kind of put some context on this too, subsequent vote getters. I mean, Coleman got 120, so he really ran away with it more than Guillen did. Next closest was Tom Browning, though, who I'm familiar with.
Yep.
He had 72. Mariano Duncan, who I remember from back in the day as well. Chris Brown, Glenn Davis, Roger McDowell, when he was with the Mets prior to going to Minnesota, in a career that he ended up making the best of, I would say. Joe Ursulak, who I do remember him as well.
The
And
Orioles.
yeah, and Joe Hesketh, who that kind of sounds familiar, but I'm not gonna.
I think he played for the Sox for a little while.
Did he Hesketh?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, he got a vote while he was with Montreal. So
Yeah, he played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons with the Sox.
Wow.
Rolo, where are you in this? How do you
Uh,
not know Hesketh?
That name does not ring a bell at all. Like I have some cursory awareness of Sox players starting in like the early '90s, where he must have played during that time. But
yeah.
I feel like for some reason the name that stands out in my head as far as being like a general like kind of regular middle of the road ball player for the Red Sox that I remember like latching on to because I think I got his baseball card was Tim Naring. Do you remember him?
Mm-hmm.
He was a third baseman, I think.
Yep.
And so I know that that name kind of stood out, like that's not one of like the superstar names. But this particular player, his name does not ring a bell. So chalk that up to, little kid brain, not latching on to some of these journeyman baseball players from back in the day.
I'll tell you this. I remember that year of the Cardinals. Um, and if I remember correctly, well, they played the Royals in the World Series and lost um, on that controversial call by Don Denkinger. Um, and if I remember correctly, Coleman got hurt after a tarp ran over him.
Oh, is that him?
What?
Yeah.
Oh no.
So
That
he missed
sucks.
the World Series because of that.
Yeah, he did. I didn't realize that was him.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
Let me see.
Well, it's funny you talk about a different time period too. Um, he got MVP votes as a rookie, as a you know mid batting average kind of guy. Stolen bases were over 100, which he did for 3 seasons as a rookie. And then more of a table setter kind of guy, and then a defensive guy. Even though he was a left fielder, he was a defensive kind of guy. And to see him get as many MVP votes really speaks to the type of baseball um, that was being played back then. And not
Mm,
only that, I think it also reflects what the National League was doing. Um,
yeah.
I mean, he improved his batting average, 20 points in 87, um, and pretty much was similar across the board from his rookie year. And he got one more vote for MVP. Um,
Sheesh.
so interesting career for Coleman. Bounced around quite a bit after St. Louis. Um, but definitely an interesting player.
I'm kind of chomping at the bit to talk about the next year of Rookie of the Year voting. It's a loaded one, and it also begins the commemorative uh Oakland A sort of
Yeah, the run.
like they should just start calling it the Oakland, the Oakland Rookie of the Year award because this starts a run of three in a row
Yep.
for your boys. And then, like, at least since this, starting here, have they had eight? My count was eight rookies of the year. Up through who was the most recent guy that got it? I don't know if I recognize this.
Who, my guys?
Was it Andrew Bailey was the
I think
most
it was
recent one
Bailey.
that got it? Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it was Bailey. But
But
yes, the next, um, you know, let's talk about Worrell first.
mm,
So
well, that's arguably the more interesting conversation to have as it relates to those who are also up for it that year. Holy crap.
Oh, yeah. Barry Bonds is sixth.
Barry Bonds, John Kruk, Barry Larkin.
Yep.
Like I mean,
Kevin
some
Mitchell.
pretty recognizable names. Barry Bonds is the most glaring one, of course, but like,
Yep. Yep.
Kevin Mitchell.
I mean, yeah, Kevin Mitchell. I mean, look at this season for Bonzo.
mm,
I wouldn't say he set the world on fire.
yeah, no, 223. Yeah,
You know,
the
16
most
home
home
runs.
runs, the most home runs of all of them, though.
yeah.
He did. Yeah. But I mean, 113 games and he hitting 16 home runs. You
Only
know,
a
I can see
223
why he's
average
there.
too. That's not great. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see why he's there.
Mm.
At the same time, though, I also wonder with those stats, would he be actually below John Kruk if not for his name recognition? Or
I
would he
mean,
have been
Crocky had a
below?
309 average that season. Holy shit.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, even Barry Lockett.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
I mean, much
320.
less game.
Only 283 was his average. Yeah.
159 at bats.
Mm-hmm.
Um, interesting. Will Clark's on there.
Yeah, yeah. Don't sleep on Will Clark. Don't sleep on Will Clark.
I remember him well.
Yeah, I mean, Will the throw.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a fantastic player for years. And I'd say that, Todd Worrell, I remember him coming up, another one of those baseball card guys that I remember everybody looking for the Todd Worrell because he was the next big thing. I mean, he was a closer. Closers were getting hot. I mean, you had Lee Smith, you had Eckersley at the time, and those were, some pretty flashy guys. Actually, Eckersley, I don't even think he started closing yet, where this may have been his first year.
Oh,
Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
103 innings pitched that season for Todd Worrell. Like
yeah.
we talked an episode or so or two ago about what the like high end of innings pitched for a closer is
50 to 60.
nowadays,
Yeah.
and it's like into the
Yep.
low 70s, and this guy pitched another 30 more innings over that. That's insane.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, 36 saves. I don't know. Actually, no, I can almost guarantee you though, he did not start as a closer.
Mm.
And I
That
mean,
could be
you
true.
can even look at his win loss record.
9 and 10, he definitely must have started as a starter to begin
Yeah, he
at
was either a
least.
starter or a long relief kind of guy before he got.
Mm.
But they got a lot of decisions in those days because they would go at least 3 innings a lot of times.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Well,
Oh.
you need five
Um,
innings
that's
for a
true.
decision.
That's true.
But yes, you're right. Yeah, you're right. There was a
But,
lot of.
have
Yeah.
you guys ever seen that play in the World Series with the Cardinals and the Royals? With
Which
Don Denkinger made a bad call.
You ready to show it to us?
One that caught the ball. Let me see if I have it here.
Mm.
Let's see.
Yeah, I remember Todd Worrell, and I can almost picture the card and everybody chasing it. Little did we know that those things were printed to to the moon,
Let's see.
so they were worthless.
Wow, he had an outlier. Like he was at like 33 saves, then 32 saves, but then 20, and then 3, and then 5. Like I almost wondered, did he get injured or something? But then all of a sudden with the Dodgers in '96, he shot up to 44 saves. They had a
Yeah,
little bit of like a late career resurgence.
yeah, yeah. I think that was one of those things where I don't think he could stay on the field.
Mm.
Main headquarters, we have the biggest screens.
Oh,
The
we got
games
commercials.
watch, the best game day food, and your favorite ice cold.
This is the play here.
Ooh, I don't have any visual, Mr. T.
Nope.
I got a white bar.
Yeah, same here.
Can't see it?
No.
No.
All right. Your screen is being paused. Well, he went over to cover first base, Worrell, and they called it was a 0-0 game in the 9th inning. And so he was out by like a good step and a half on this like AstroTurf ground ball. And Denkinger called him safe. I think on the next hitter, this guy Dane Orge got a single, ran him right around for the winning run.
Crazy. I do remember the call. I do remember the call.
Yeah. And that was Worrell going over to cover.
It's funny how some of these little history lessons remind you just how impactful some of these guys were when you don't really think of it. Yeah, I do remember Worrell being one of those dudes who kind of certainly fell off the face of the earth after a little while. And I think he was probably one of my first baseball card letdowns because I think everybody was chasing him. And then all of a sudden nobody was. And being a child at the time was kind of a little disheartening. Wait a second, these aren't the great investment I ever thought they were. Um,
Darn.
yeah, right. All right, so the next one, Mr. Controversy. AL Rookie of the Year voting, Jose Canseco.
Yeah, wax eloquent on your boy. How big of a fan of this first half of the Bash Brothers were you back in the day?
I will tell you that this team is definitely what indoctrinated me into being an Oakland A's fan. I think I already had um, uh, uh, leanings, but I also was a fan of the Royals because I like George Brett. I was a fan of the Orioles because I liked Ripken. Um, and I liked Chicago because of Ryan Sandberg. And I was a fan of um, the Braves at the time. Probably because my mother really waxed poetically about Bobby Cox,
Mm-hmm.
respected him as a manager. But seeing these guys flashy as they were and hitting the long ball like they were certainly kind of solidified my love for Oakland. Um, I mean, you think about what he did that year: 117 RBIs, 33 home runs, 15 stolen bases. He was the first real low batting average guy that I thought I saw people being like okay with. And I do remember that being a thing. Like, but wait a second, he's only hitting 240, and that bothered me as a child. But I mean, it was kind of an undeniable show when you watched him play. As a child, he was just big, strong, and fast. Then later on, you realize how goofy the dude was. But
Well, wasn't he the one that was a home run
where the
hit?
home run ball off his head?
Yeah.
Yeah. When he was in Texas.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, when he tried to play off like he didn't like. No, it didn't hit me in the head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And didn't he like go through stretches of time where he was basically threatening like to assassinate Fidel Castro? Yeah, no.
Probably.
Canseco
Yeah.
did?
Yeah, because he's
Wouldn't
from
surprise me.
Cuba, and I remember he's had like I'd have to look up specific quotes, but he's had
Yeah.
nothing but horrible things to say about Fidel Castro, which you can't blame.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'd be more concerned if he was,
Pro Castro.
singing his praises.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Ozzie Guillen.
Like Ozzie
Mm.
Guillen. Yes, he actually did. Yes, he
Uh-huh.
did. Yeah, I remember that quote. So pulling up the rear behind Mr. Canseco, Wally Joyner,
Yes.
Mark Eichhorn. I totally forgot about Mark Eichhorn. But he was another guy that was pretty instrumental with Toronto um, in some of those playoff teams, and consequently the I think he was still in the World Series teams with them, but it wasn't a huge impact, but definitely played a role for them.
Yep.
Corey Snyder, I do remember the name, but I don't remember him well.
I saw him play in the Cape League.
Okay, okay,
Good.
yeah, yeah. I mean, his stats look pretty good for a rookie. Danny Tartabull. I mean, obviously, it's Tartabull. We all, I would imagine, remember Tartabull.
Yep.
And then big bad leg kick Ruben Sierra.
Yeah.
Um, I remember he was one of my first arch nemesis in Texas. And when he got traded away to New York, he actually um, made my life a little bit better. I mean, unfortunately, he was one of those guys that after Texas spent a little bit of time with me um, in Oakland, but didn't really live up to those numbers. So he went from Texas to I want to say in '92. Who did he end up? Oh, that's when he went over to us. He went over to us in '92, and then he ended up at the Yankees. We got rid of him, and he went to the Yankees, where he won at least two rings, maybe just one with them. Um, but I'd almost say that he had more of a career um, out of all these guys um, than Canseco. I mean, obviously, Canseco, we all know what he's probably most remembered for.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts?
Smashing
Look at it.
forearms with Mark McGuire.
I'm looking at Sierra's career. He played until 2006, man.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
played
Oh yeah. Oh
forever.
yeah. Yeah. My
He
man
Holy
played
hanging
forever.
up.
crap.
I remember him just being a serviceable like bench player for the Yankees is my frame of reference for him, as I know he was
Wow.
on with them for a while, and I remember he wasn't part of their like starting lineup, but in a pinch, he would be able to get in there and like still cause some damage, like
Yeah. He
a
was
pretty
a
good bench guy.
he was a bat off the bench
Mm.
for sure, and he was serviceable as a DH. I think after a
Mhm.
while he just wasn't there. I remember him raking us though in Texas. And then when he came to Oakland, I mean, he did well. I can't say he didn't. He did well, but I don't think he lived up to the expectations that I necessarily had after watching him kick our butt so much in Texas.
I just remembered something about Wally Joyner. Um, so in the championship series that he played against the Red Sox in '86, where they were one strike away, he I had remembered he got hurt in one of the games, and I didn't know what happened to him. But he says where they let's see, in game three of the series, Joyner was running home on an infield hit, and he stepped on home plate, and he unknowingly opened up a previously unseen staph infection on his shin, which led him to be hospitalized and miss the rest of the series.
Oof,
I had forgotten about that, but I remember that now.
that's messed up.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate. What a time to open up. I mean, there's not a good time to open up a staph infection, but what a time to do so.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, so I remember Kinseko, the big thing. I mean, now we got 50-50 guys, right? But he was the first 40-40,
Mhm.
where he had the speed, he had the size, he had the pop, and some of those moonshots. I remember specifically at
He crushed the ball.
the Sky Dome, um, you know,
Ugh.
putting dents in the facades. Um, just ridiculous. Now, obviously, we know why he was able to do that, but you know,
Mhm.
I don't think in I get it. You know, he hurt the game. He probably was one of the biggest catalysts to hurting the game, and I'm against it. But I'll tell you what,
Mm.
if guys like Bonds get in, Canseco gets in.
He
At
might.
462 dingers.
Yeah, I mean, tell me more guys that aren't associated with steroids that have over 400 home runs and aren't in the Hall. Tell me 350 home run guys that aren't in the Hall that aren't associated with steroids. Not many.
Yeah.
Right. I don't like the guy. I think he screwed up the game. We all know my feelings on steroids in the game, and he was probably one of the biggest catalysts. So, um, screw him. But I also think that if you're going to have that conversation, that he's one of those guys you got to talk about.
He has to be
It
considered.
was pretty brazen. Yeah, there's an interesting juxtaposition between how he's approached things versus how the rookie of the year in '87 has approached things.
Yeah.
Because I mean, Canseco, I mean, he just kind of says like, yeah, what? This is what we did. He wrote a freaking book called Juiced. So he's been pretty brazen about his use of steroids. But then you got someone like Mark McGwire in '87, who, as far as I've always heard, has always been kind of coy and kind of like deflecting, always in kind of a polite way. He seems like a nice guy, and he clearly was a really good hitter. But he doesn't seem like he's ever fully fully taken accountability for
He
taking
has
steroids
not.
himself. But correct me if I'm
Oh
wrong. Yeah.
no, he actually did.
Oh, he
He
did.
actually did. Yes, when he um after all the stuff that he did tonight and all the trials and all this stuff, when he popped up as the hitting coach for the Los Angeles Dodgers, he
Hmm.
actually had a sit down interview with MLB Network and openly talked about his use of steroids and
Okay.
admitted to them
Okay.
and discussed them, apologized to folks, and literally just let it up. Now, that doesn't make it better, but it makes him better than a Palmero in my book, or
Mm.
some of the other guys who continuously deny. But yeah, I mean, he was the first. He was the poster child of having Andro in the background of an interview in his locker, um, and people
Right.
openly questioning what exactly Andro was.
Like, hey, what's that?
Yeah, I mean,
Mm.
again, names that we all know. McGwire, obviously, Kevin Seitzer, Matt Noakes, probably the guy who should have won it, Mike Greenwell,
Oh,
certainly one of the best players in Red Sox history.
vomit.
Mm.
Yeah, Devin White, who was a really, serviceable player
You
for.
just said one of you.
Break out the vomit bag. Gator.
Yeah,
uh, Mike Greenwell is starting to rise up the ranks and being one of Taylor's trigger words right behind Clemens.
Yes, punchable face.
yeah. What's funny is the second I saw his name on this list, I was like, oh, this is perfect. I'm gonna tee this up.
He wanted the after like 30 years or something like that, he wanted to take Canseco's MVP because he finished second.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Maybe he could have had it on the fall from steroids. What
Mo
was
Vaughn kicked the
Greenwell?
shit out of him too. I love that day.
Was Greenwell in the
Wow.
performance enhancing? Um,
I don't know. He was just a obnoxious asshole. There's a lot of stories about him.
I'll tell you what, gentlemen, I may have to help my wife with something real quick. Why don't you folks continue this discussion
Mm.
and just catch me up where I come back? I'll be right
Okay.
back.
All right. So let's see.
Sounds like a plan.
So that year, Kevin Seitzer, the only reason I remember him is because Chris Berman used to call him Kevin Alka-Seitzer.
Mm.
Like Alka-Seltzer. Devon White, I remember a lot.
Sounds like a Berman thing to say. That along with back.
Let's see, Mike Henneman, I remember he was a reliever. Nelson Liriano. Okay. The National League guys, I don't recognize as well. Benito Santiago, I do.
Yes, Benito Santiago is a name that I'm familiar with, but yeah, looking at the other, my internet's lagging on me. Who are the other names on the
Mike Dunn, I don't
NL
know. Joe McGrain was a left-handed pitcher.
Rookie of the Year?
Casey Candell was a utility player. Gerald Young, I don't even know who that is. I don't know who Chris James is. I've never heard of Chris James. And he had pretty good numbers, too. Les Lancaster, I vaguely remember that. Greg Matthews, I don't remember. And Randy Myers, the Nasty Boys.
Hmm.
So I can't argue with those choices, actually.
Yeah,
Matt
it
Noakes,
looks like
another Yankee,
it was
Quinn.
borderline unanimous with how many.
49.
Damn him straight to hell.
Yeah. Matt Noakes was a Yankee, too. I remember him as a Yankee. Oh, let's see. So the next year was pretty lean.
Well, yeah, just because, like, obviously Oakland continues their run of Rookie of the Year dominance before they break Greco's heart to, leave his team. But I must confess, I don't recognize the name of this Oakland player. Do you know this guy?
Walt Weiss? I do. He
Yeah.
he was a manager with Colorado. They fired him, I don't know, 6 years ago. He managed the Rockies. He's one of the many Rockies managers to get fired. Yeah, I remember Weiss. He was a shortstop.
Oh, really?
Yep. Pretty good shortstop. Do you remember Jody Reed, Quinn?
Jody Reed?
Yeah.
I do.
He was a shortstop too.
That name also does not ring a bell. I'm showing my baby status here. And not
Right-handed
remembering
hitting
all these
shortstop for the Red
names.
Sox. I remember him pretty well. Don August, I have no idea who that is. Dave Gallagher, I have no idea. Melito Perez, I remember he pitched for the Yankees for a little while. Mike Schooler, I have no idea who he is. And Cecil Espy, I think I had his baseball card. But most of the guys I don't even recognize him here. But Walt Weiss, I do recognize. And I think Brian Harvey had like 50 saves one year.
Yeah. Okay, so we do have in the NL Rookie of the Year that year, the where Chris Sabo won. Lower down on the list is Roberto Alomar, so that's a pretty glaring.
That's
I'm curious
interesting.
to see. I guess he just must not have had as impressive a year. Well, let's see here. No, fascinating. So Chris Sabo had 11 home runs and 44 RBIs. Roberto Alomar had 9 home runs and 41 RBIs. And their batting averages were similar. Roberto Alomar had batted 266, Sabo 271. I'm trying to see why in the hell Sabo ended up winning. I'm still trying to figure that out here. Huh. Why would he have won? And he wasn't even the closest next vote getter. Mark Grace? Who the hell was Mark Grace?
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
recognize him.
You don't know who Mark Grace is? First baseman.
I don't.
Played for the
Looks like he was on the
Diamondbacks.
Cubbies in his rookie year. Oh, he played
Yep.
for the
He played
Diamondbacks.
for the
Okay.
Cubs for a while. There's some recognizable names there: Tim Belcher, Ron Gant, Roberto Alomar, David Berryhill, Greg Jeffries, Ricky Jordan's a little lesser known. I remember all those guys.
I mean, explain to me why. Like, I mean, I guess you can't see into the future. You don't know that Roberto Alomar is gonna, become a more. Like, I sort of feel like he's the most stalwart, like recognizable name of those bunch.
Yeah.
Like, had the best career.
He's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. So it's like, but even just looking in the snapshot of those rookie seasons, his rookie season, he had the second highest. Not that they probably used WAR back then, but he had the second highest WAR behind Sabo. Like it's just an interesting, and like I was looking to see like if games played made a difference, but Roberto Alomar played more games than Sabo. So I want to retroactively contest this decision. Who the hell were these writers voting
You're gonna
on?
contest
Like,
his
what the
vote,
hell?
Quinn?
Yeah, I'm gonna write a strongly worded letter to the Baseball Writers Association of America and say, why the hell didn't you vote for Roberto Alomar?
Robbie Alomar. Yeah,
It was ridiculous.
So I was remembering Chris Sabo because, Greco won't like this, but he played. Do you ever remember the Nasty Boys Reds team? So the Nasty Boys were Norm Charlton, Rob Dibble, and Randy Myers. They were like the last 3 guys in the bullpen, and they were lights out.
I remember the term, like I've heard that reference, but I didn't know the breakdown of who the Nasty Boys were.
Yep. There was, I remember Chris Sabo from that World Series in 1990 against the Reds, and I was just looking at it. Let's see. I just saw it a minute ago. It was crazy. Advanced batting. Postseason. Here we go. 1990 World Series. 16 at bats, 9 hits, 2 runs, a double, 2 homers, 5 RBIs, 2 walks, batted .563. That's why I remember him.
Oof. Damn. Batted .563?
In the World Series, yep. 9 for 60.
Talking about Sabo? Are we talking about Sabo?
You remember his .563 there?
Are we talking about Sabo?
Yeah.
In his dumb glasses.
Yeah.
And how punchable his face was. You know what? If you want to talk about somebody who drove me up a damn wall, because I feel like he single-handedly won the World Series for Cincinnati.
I remember him well for that.
Well. Look who wants to suddenly punch someone in the face.
Yeah. No, this is my. Yeah, he's probably the only one. Him and Lackey are probably the only ones that I dislike enough. Because you know what? Chris Sabo, all you had to tell me was those stats. That's all I heard.
Yeah.
Was those stats, and I knew exactly who you were talking about.
Yeah.
I just pulled up the list to see where we could be. Yeah.
The other thing I remember in that series is Billy Hatcher. Because he had 9 straight hits. He had hits in 9 straight at bats.
It wasn't close.
Yeah.
They took Marge Shaw, put that team on the field. and destroyed my boys.
Yeah. It was a big upset, like a huge upset.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We were. I mean, we were a dynasty at that point. I mean,
Yeah. And
so
Lou Piniella was the Reds manager.
he was. That was my introduction to Lou Piniella.
Well,
And then he went. And then he went to I'm sorry, he went to Seattle,
Seattle.
and
Yeah.
I hated him even more because now he was in my AL West. And then yeah, no, not a
well,
fan.
then Greco, it'll hearten you to know. It'll hearten you to know that before you returned, I was saying that I was going to write a strongly worded letter to the Baseball Writers Association of America for voting Sabo Rookie of the Year that year instead of Robbie Alomar, who had almost identical numbers and went on to become a Hall of Famer. So it's like obviously they can't see into the future and know that he was going to become a Hall of Famer. But even if you look, like we looked at what the stats were for Alomar that season, they're almost identical, if not a little better in some categories. And yet he was like fifth on the list.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I almost feel, um, without really spending a lot of time with the list, I almost feel that Sabo, because they are voting for this after the series, I feel like Sabo was helped by his performance in the series.
Um, interesting year.
Oh, I know why Alomar didn't get the votes that he should have. He was on the Padres at that time. The Padres are irrelevant and stupid.
So there you have it. No more strongly worded letters for Quinn.
That's
Yeah,
right.
all done.
That's right. I totally understand where the writers are coming from now.
All done. Yeah. Oh, well, it's a shame that the year before Benito Santiago from the Padres actually won the award. So
Yeah, that's a shame.
yeah.
He's one of the few guys that's had longer than a 30 game hit streak. I'd be interested to see if there are any catchers that had a 34 or 5 game hit streak.
That's a good question.
Unusual.
Yeah. Benny was a beast. He was gritty. He was gritty behind the plate. All right. Now, we're only up to 1990.
Yeah, 89.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna have to break this down into like 5 different podcasts if we keep going
Yeah.
at this rate.
Yeah. And you know what? Honestly, I'm kind of good with it because this is a fun discussion to have.
It does lead to fun discussions.
Yeah.
And we gotta really like, I mean, 90 is, obviously some recognizable players. 91 is an interesting conversation too, though. Oof.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm thinking, you know what, let's get through, maybe get into 95. Let's cover a decade per.
Yep.
Yeah,
then-
yeah.
You know what I mean? And then we'll run through. So did you already cover Walt Weiss? I apologize.
Yeah, he had like nothing numbers.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
No, he was defense.
Yeah.
In he was and maybe I can add some context. He was the one piece of that team that I think they needed to take them over the tops of the series. Because between him, Gallego, and Carney Lansford, they became a more defensive team. His run saved and how he transformed what Oakland was really significant. And reading a stat sheet for him, you'd never see that. I mean, you just wouldn't. And then he ended up going to Atlanta, and he had a pretty significant career. And I'm assuming you looked at his stats.
It looks like he was an all-star in his first season with Atlanta.
Yeah. I mean, I remember he kind of broke out of his offensive slumps there, and then continued on from there. and became a manager. He was one of those heady
Yeah.
shortstops that ended up being one of those guys. So
Yeah.
um, I respect Walt Weiss, and yeah, no, his offensive numbers are not flashy, but I'll tell you what, his defense was game changing for us.
He made the mistake of managing in Colorado.
Yep,
Uh,
yep. It wouldn't surprise me if you see him pop back up as a manager again.
Yep.
You know,
If you guys look at the 89 rookie of the year,
yeah.
well, I actually do remember Jerome Walton. He hit 25 career home runs, so he never panned out. But Greg Olson, who was a relief pitcher for the Orioles,
hmm
Griffey was third.
Isn't that
yeah,
something?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yikes.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, was there some disdain for his father or something, and so they didn't want to give him the
No, he
award?
had some
16
hype.
homers, 61 RBIs. So the reason I remember that year, Greg Olson, is because the year before, well, they won I think like 89 or 90 games in 89. And the year before, they had lost their first 21 games in 88. And because I have relatives out there and they follow the Orioles and stuff. So they lost their first 21 games of the season. It's still, I think the White Sox nearly passed it this year, but they did not.
Flash Gordon was the runner-up that year.
Yep, second place. Yep.
Yep.
He was a good pitcher.
And Kevin
He
Brown
was.
was on this list too.
Yep.
Another good career, even though the Sox ended up thumping him in 04, which
Yeah.
is just a real shame.
Yeah.
I mean, Jim Abbott.
Yeah, that's a great story, Jim Abbott.
I mean, pitched a no-hitter. One of the more, I would tell you, I think it almost made him a better fielder. Didn't he win Gold Gloves
I'm not sure.
as a pitcher?
I have a good story about Jim Abbott. I have a very good friend that I still talk to. And she lives in New York. And when I had first met her, she was sitting in the cubicle next to mine, and she was wearing a sweater over her arm. So I thought she was cold, and just put her arms in the sweater. So I said, "What's with the Jim Abbott thing going?" And she had no arm in her. She's without an arm.
Mm-hmm.
Easily one of the most embarrassing moments of my life.
Yeah, it's going there, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
The old Jim Abbott joke.
Yep. Backfired miserably.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
I guess so. Yeah, no, I was wrong. He did not win any Gold Gloves, but I could have sworn he was up for some.
No hitter.
He had a no hitter. I mean,
Yeah, no hitter.
I think one of the more inspirational stories of just don't give up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean,
87
just
and
to
108.
be,
Didn't have a great. I thought he was better than that, but well, I guess not. Well,
yeah.
Hmm.
Now, Tom Gordon, Ken Griffey. I mean, Griffey had a full season. I almost wonder if his hype kind of hurt him a little bit because he was already the kid coming up.
Right.
He had to play with his
And he
father.
played with his dad in that first season, right?
yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
First few, I believe.
Mm.
So, definitely a different kind of start of the career. My hope is that, well, not my hope. Obviously, it's over. But when you think about, Tom Gordon and I mean, Greg Olson had some pretty impressive stats that year.
Yep.
27 saves, 1.69 ERA, 5-2 loss record, one home run given up all season.
Yeah.
Not too bad. But Gordon,
85 innings.
yeah, not a little bit. I think Gordon probably, at least in my estimation, I should have been the guy to take that one.
Think about that, man. One home run
Mm.
in 85 innings.
No, that is significant. That is significant. All right. So I'm gonna explain something. I know you boys already know what's going on. So there is a kitten running around outside that my wife is trying to catch because we've already found a home for it. I think she
Ooh.
trapped something else.
Uh-oh.
So I'm gonna go and assist. Again, gentlemen, keep talking. I'll be back.
Oh gosh, Godspeed.
I don't know what's in there.
Oh dear.
Man.
Oh my. Wow,
Drama.
never a dull moment at the Greco household.
Oh, drama.
Yeah. The 1990 list is interesting though.
Yes.
Looking at the AL Rookie of the Years, obviously the other Alomar, were they brothers?
I
Sandy
believe
and
they are, actually.
Robbie? Yeah. He another kind of point of contention that Robbie Alomar probably has is that what the hell? He gave it to my brother, he didn't give it to me? What the hell? Because he looked like he got 100% share of the first place votes. So like he was a real consensus.
You'll
Rookie of the
you'll like him, Quinn, because he when they made the World Series in '97
Mm,
and wound up playing against the Marlins,
hmm
he had a huge home run off of Mariano Rivera in the division series.
Ooh,
It was like
yeah.
3 blown saves that Rivera had in his entire postseason career, and
Wow.
Allen just wanted to hit a home run off him.
Well, he's forever a hero in my book.
You could probably look it up. I'll guarantee you they have it. Kevin Moss, I remember him. The Yankees thought he was going to be a superstar, left-handed hitter in the short porch in right field. Kevin Apier, I remember him. Olerud, I definitely remember him.
I can't say I remember Moss or Apier, but Olerud I remember if only because of that helmet that he always wore. Because of did he have a plate in his head? Did he have like a specific issue with his head as to why he had to wear that helmet all the time?
I think I'm not sure if it was something that he had at birth or something, but yeah, he wore a helmet all the time. I saw him on the subway one time when he was playing for the Mets. He used to take the subway to the ball game.
Did you talk him up? Did you ask him what's with the helmet?
I did not. But I was like, is that John Olerud? It looks like John Olerud. He was kind of he was very quiet, he kind of blended into the crowd. So that's why he took the subway.
Yeah, I remember him being on the Sox for like a season or two, I feel like. Yeah.
Robin Ventura, Ben
him.
McDonald. So I saw Ben McDonald play in the Cape League, and they had he was the number 1 pick in the draft. He had 10,000 people at a Cape League game for his debut.
Wow.
And there's like no seats in the Cape League, like you bring your own chairs.
Damn.
There was like 10,000 fans there. That's what I remember most about him. Alex Cole, I remember all those guys.
I definitely remember more of them than I do from some of the prior lists that we've looked at. But I also know some of the guys on the NL list too. We get with David Justice winning. I certainly know him. You know, he
Yeah.
had a stretch there where he was on the Yankees.
Yep.
John Burkett, he played for the Sox at one point.
Yep.
And I'm also familiar with Marquise Grissom rings a bell, and obviously Larry Walker. We we touched on him in the cast, but is this another list where you go 7 for 7, or I guess 8 for 8 technically?
I recognize them all.
Yeah.
Delino DeShields played for the Expos and the Dodgers. Hal Morris was a first baseman, left-handed bat. John Burkett, we know. Oh, Mike Harkey, I don't know who that is. I do not recognize that name. Todd Zeal, I definitely remember. He played for the Mets. He replaced Olerud, actually, at first base.
Oh,
And then Marquise Grissom made the final out of the Braves World Series in the 90s, the only one they won in the 90s. And Larry Walker's a Hall of Famer.
mm-hmm. Which I don't know. I still kind of test.
Yeah, I wasn't a big advocate for him either, given that he played in Colorado.
Yeah. Damn, David Justice had a ridiculous rookie year.
Yeah.
I guess he's kind of one of those that you could say, let me look at his career stats here. Career 279, 305 home runs. It's definitely a respectable career, but
Yeah.
I would imagine based off of those rookie numbers, they may have hoped for bigger things from him.
Yeah, he faded quickly.
Yeah. Which of course then makes you wonder how much did that have to do with was he using at some point? Like was
He
that kind
hit
of
41 home runs and drove in 118 runs in 2000. And his last season was 2002.
mm-hmm. Mm.
So that's falling far fast.
Yeah. He was on that 97 Cleveland team though that went to the World Series that you just referenced. So he was on that team as well.
Yep.
Ooh.
329 batting average. Wow.
Yeah, he was an all-star that season.
Yep. He was a good player.
418 OBP, damn. Yeah, you know, now that I'm thinking about it, because looking at his two Yankees seasons, he hit 305 and then 241. That's certainly not as good, but I do remember him in my mind's eye being someone similar to Ruben Sierra, where I was just like, even this guy can hurt you. Like he would come off the bench and you'd still be a little nervous that he'd get a big hit.
Yep. Do you remember who he was married to, Quinn?
Oh, I don't. You tell.
Halle Berry. He was married to Halle Berry for a while.
Woo, good for him.
Yep. Yep.
Do you know which movie Halle Berry won the Oscar for Best Actress?
Oh, I'm trying to think. I don't, but I'll know when you tell me.
She won Best Actress for the 2001 film Monsters Ball, also starring Billy Bob
Yeah.
Thornton and Heath Ledger. Pretty dark, really sad movie, but really good. She's really good in it. Yeah, that 2001 Oscars, she won Best Actress, and Denzel Washington won Best Actor that year for Training Day.
I was just going to say it's got to be Training Day.
Oh yeah. Oh
Of
yeah.
course, Rolo
Greco
turns
leaves
the
for just 5
discussion
minutes, and I turn it to
about
movies.
David Justice, and you don't even have to tell me who you're talking about, but turns it into a movie discussion. Listen, in not her best role, but one of the most probably paused parts of any movie ever is Swordfish.
Oh,
Oh,
All right.
yeah.
I remember that.
Listen. So we did catch something.
Ooh, what'd you catch?
It was another cat.
Oh,
Oh.
So that cat got a free meal and
Oh,
and
hey,
scurried
just
away.
just just feeding all the kitties. You're just gonna lure more of them to your yard.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a problem. All right. So sorry. Continue on and I'll jump in.
So I really think we gotta talk through 91 because these two winners are like flashpoints for different issues. Uh, where you got Jeff Bagwell winning the NL Rookie of the Year, and he's another one that is. Was there ever confirmation, or has he ever come outright and said? So he's just one of those that everyone assumes, but it's never been confirmed.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't necessarily know if anybody really assumes. When he was playing, there wasn't a lot of smoke. There wasn't a lot of smoke. And he was in the middle of the I mean that's when they won, or not when they won, they never won, but when they were playing the White Sox
Mm-hmm,
in the
mm-hmm.
series. And that was like the height of, the Mitchell report, the whole thing. In fact, I remember, I think I even mentioned this podcast, how pissed I was that the White Sox had broken the streak since the Black Sox scandal, and the
Mm.
first thing that was in ESPN magazine was about the steroids report instead of anything really about the World Series, and so
Right.
that kind of pissed me off. But as far as Bagwell goes, I remember there being more discussion almost after he retired and when he was going into the Hall than I remember when he was actually playing.
Mm.
I was
And I
not a
could
fan
be wrong with that.
in the hall.
Was that, buddy?
I was not a fan of him getting in the hall.
Yeah, he seems like a borderline guy to me.
Yeah,
I had like actually forgotten. I had to pull up his page and be like, wait, is he?
Yep.
Wow.
So what didn't you like about him getting in?
I just didn't think he was a great all around player.
Okay.
I don't think I'd have to let me look at his numbers here. His numbers didn't
MVP,
wow me.
4-time All-Star, 3-time Silver Slugger, Rookie of the Year, Gold Glove.
20 2,300 hits, 297 batting average. That's pretty high.
15 years,
RBIs 1529.
449 home runs.
Yeah. OPS 948. I never thought he was a dominant player compared to other guys of his era. I just didn't.
I'll tell you what, being the sole power hitter for many years on some pretty trifling um, Houston teams, him, Bagwell,
Mm.
and him, Biggio, and
Yep.
Berkman, the Killer Bees, um, were a pretty formidable force
Yep.
for a portion of it. I don't know. I think he's one of those guys that I agree with you is probably not, you know, is he um Derek Jeter? No. But I think he's a Hall of Famer.
And if my calculations are correct here, timing this out, looking at his career, it looks like his last season was 2005, but he didn't get voted into the Hall until 2017. So
Oh
he
yeah.
clearly spent some time on the ballot. So him not being a first ballot Hall of Famer, I can accept a little more that he's in it, but that also just brings me back to my overall kind of qualms with like if it takes that long for you to get it in the first place, are you really a Hall of Famer? But that's just kind of like a conundrum I have a hard time with.
You know what? I think if you're gonna measure somebody that way, then you need to allow unlimited voting on the ballot.
That's fair.
You
Yeah.
just, I mean, because otherwise, if you're not top 10 in some of these ballots, I mean, even this year's pretty stacked. Then you're going to be missing out on
Mm.
a lot of great players who should have the accolade and the honor of being on the Hall. Um, so how salty are you guys for not having him as your first baseman for 15 years.
I don't know. I mean, they traded him for Larry Anderson because um, they needed a bullpen guy for the 1990 playoffs. Um, and that happens sometimes, you know.
Oh, it certainly does. It certainly does. And in hindsight, though, would you have rather have 15 years of even borderline, if you guys are right, and think that maybe he's not necessarily a Hall of Fame with 449 home runs, um, in Houston, nonetheless. Would you like to have that swing in Fenway at that monster?
Mm.
I would. But then where do you put Mo Vaughn?
Mm.
DH, nowhere else.
Yep.
Trade him away instead. And keep
Not
somebody
not a
longer.
fan of Mo.
You probably would have gotten a better haul for Mo Vaughn, who gave you another good year.
Mm.
Well, he just we got nothing for him. He just left
I know.
Anaheim.
Yeah. Oh, believe me, I was loving it because Anaheim was paying him. I don't know if he's still on the payroll, but they were paying him every year for many years. Well, after he was another Bobby Bonilla Day guy.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, you probably could have got a better haul for Vaughn than Bagwell, and you could have kept Bagwell. And I bet you with 449 home runs, actually probably more than that in Fenway, probably closer to 5. Yeah. I don't think you'd be sitting there saying he's borderline, even with the stats that he has in Houston if he played his career in Boston.
Mm.
I'm trying to think if he played most of his career in the Astrodome.
Oh, he did. He did. Tropicana Field wasn't open.
Or Minute Maid, yeah.
I mean, sorry, yeah, Minute Maid. I knew it was a fruit juice. Minute Maid Park wasn't open for a while. I think it was closer to when they went to the series when Minute Maid.
I just read a story on that park today somewhere. They changed the name of it.
Was it Trastros?
Yeah, let's see.
Uh,
Minute Maid. Yeah, Minute Maid Park.
please don't tell me it's named after some sort of stupid Bitcoin. I'm gonna lose it if that's the case.
Oh.
So I mean, they have that hill in the back too.
Mm.
Yeah, so 2000. So he played 5 seasons.
Yeah.
In Minute Maid. So the bulk of his career was at the Astrodome, which was a cavernous,
Yeah.
to say the least.
Yeah.
So tough to hit dingers in that place.
Was that?
Tough to hit dingers in that place.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and there was I mean, one thing that people overlook when they talk about a dome stadium is stream. Right? In how far that ball's going out. And one of the factors a lot of times in some of these warmer climates too is that it makes the ball a little bit more have trampoline, a little bit more trampoline, and so you get more flight, more ball speed off the bat, right? And so when you have these more tempered climates of these dome stadiums, you tend to not see that effect as much. So it ends up being a harder place to hit. It really does.
So, the new name of Minute Maid Park is Dakin Park.
Okay.
Daikin. I've never heard of that.
What's it named after?
That's a company.
Oh, company. Okay.
Dinkin?
Daikin.
Well, you know what? Their advertising dollars are actually being exercised as we speak because they're like, who the hell are these guys? And I bet you by the look on Taylor's face and the furrowed brow,
Yeah.
probably trying to figure it out.
Dakin Comfort Technologies North America.
Mm-hmm.
They make pillows, beds.
Let's see.
Or
Let's
is
see.
it a nebulous a nebulously named front for some sort of illegal, nefarious activity?
Well, it's
Oh,
not Enron anymore. I know that.
Mhm.
Deacon.
Rolo.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Not everything is a movie.
Air conditioning and refrigeration. That's interesting.
There you go. You know what? Why not?
They probably make big money on that down there.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. Yeah. So probably in Texas, that's a pretty significant name. Um, so some of the folks that were up for contention or
Mm.
up for Rookie of the Year with Bagwell, Orlando Merced, another fantastic fielder. Um, Ray Langford,
Remember him?
another solid player. Brian Hunter, who I remember in Atlanta
Yep.
was a beast, especially for some of those playoff teams and the World Series teams.
Well,
Brett Barbary, I do remember him. I don't remember much about him, but by the looks of things, he had himself in 57 games. Pretty good time at the plate, 353 in 136 at bats.
wow.
Pretty respectable. Wes Chamberlain, that's another guy I forgot about, but I do remember the name. Um,
Yep.
Chuck McElroy, I don't remember as well, even though he did play for the Cubs, and I love the Cubs. And then obviously Mike Stanton.
Yep.
Certainly remember him.
Yeah, I was gonna say I believe we all have Mike Stanton on the brain.
Mm-hmm.
He was a great
I'd say him.
postseason pitcher.
What's that?
He was a great postseason pitcher.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%. And he had some pretty good stints with some teams. How many rings did he win with the Yankees?
Let's see. 98,
Yes,
99,
he
2000.
had a long career. He pitched in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
So he was with the
And,
Yankees in 90. So the Yankees didn't win in 97, but 98, 99, 2000. So three of them.
Yep.
3 rings.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a good career. I
Yeah.
mean, out of all these, it's funny. I'd peg um, Bagwell and Stanton as having the best careers, and I think Bagwell earned it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'd say so.
So
I'm just
American
curious
League.
to hear thoughts on Mr. Knobloch.
Well, I think I think we're going to be doing another podcast that'll dive more into the trials and tribulations of Mr. Knobloch. Um,
Mm.
but I'll tell you what, before his unfortunate incidents of the yips, he was a really solid player. Really solid player.
Him in the World Series, too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In I'll tell you what, he was to the point where I disliked him. In Herbeck, I remember Kent Herbeck.
Yep.
I disliked him and McDowell because they beat my boys in the league championship series or the AL, divisional series, whatever it might have been. And that's how I got disdain for Mr. Knobloch. Um, but career wise, had he not come up with the yips, I think we'd be talking a little bit differently about him. Right.
Well, that's what, like, it almost feels like he
Oh, did we lose Rolo, or is he
See.
thinking hard?
Let's see.
I think we lost him.
Oh,
Oh, can you guys hear me okay?
yeah.
It looks like it froze a little bit. Can you hear me?
Rolo, I think you need to pay your internet bill.
Okay, cool. Uh-oh. It's lagging. Let's see here. What's going on?
This guy. So
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
we can hear you.
We hear, no see.
Yeah. Um, while he figures this out, Juan Guzman, solid career.
Yep.
And probably one of the more underrated, I think, pitchers for like that time period.
Yep.
Really solid. Was really instrumental in the World Series for them, specifically that year, if I remember correctly. Milt Collier, I remember the name. I don't remember him too much.
No Kyler. Yeah, I don't remember a lot about him.
Yeah.
I remember a little bit about Ivan Rodriguez.
Oh yeah, who's that guy? Pudge. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because and again, and I know that this, we got Mr. Rolo back, but the reason why I was even starting to say, if it wasn't for the Yips, that we'd be having a different discussion about Knobloch.
Yep.
But I'll tell you what, in retrospect, Pudge, I'm happy to see he's gotten votes because what a player he ended up being.
Yep.
Probably one of the greats as far as that position goes, of all time. Rolo, what were you about to say before we your internet got the yips?
Yeah, before my internet got the yips, I was gonna say that Knobloch is sort of like the yips for him is what Game 6 is for Bill Buckner, where it feels like Buckner had a solid career, and yet all he's remembered for is that botch
Yep.
at first in Game 6. And looking at Knobloch's career, like even having it get maybe cut short because, and I don't know if it was like all the yips that ended up cutting it short, but that's what I think most people go to when they see Knobloch. Like it's almost like a shorthand for throwing the ball into the stands. And yet when you look at his numbers, like he was a really solid player, 4-time All-Star, won 4 of the world, was on all 4 World Series teams with the Yankees. Like he was a good player, but people just associate him with the Yips now. It's, I don't know, almost makes me feel bad for a Yankee player, if you can believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You should.
So I wanted to point something out to you guys about the guy who's at the bottom of that list.
Yeah, Phil Plantier. Yeah.
Do you remember his batting stance?
No, what was it?
Take a look at his batting stance, man.
Oh, I'm gonna look it up right now.
I'm not even gonna look it up.
Stances.
Was he one of the high bats?
He squatted down almost where he was sitting on the ground.
I don't know if I remember that one.
Oh man. Oh yeah, it looks like he's popping a squat right there on the batter's box.
It's crazy, right?
I gotta see this.
So look at this guy. I mean, he's just kind of trying to get a quad workout in before mashing the ball, I'm sure. Oh man, look at this baseball card. Oh, this is good stuff. I gotta share my screen on this one.
Oh yeah, I do remember that.
Let's see here. Share screen. And look at that.
Yep.
Look at that guy.
That's some glutes, bud.
I think it says rookie sensations on here too. Look at that. Look at that happenstance as we're talking about the rookies of the year. He got what, 1% of the vote? So good for him.
Yeah. I remember
You know-
that about him.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I think that the the common thought was always that they squat down to shrink the strike zone, but the strike zone actually resets once you start your swing plane. So the strike zone is supposed to be from basically your waist to your knees once you actually get into your swing stance. So it doesn't matter where you start, it's where you finish with your swing plane.
A
So you
metaphor
think
for
that was
life.
his way of
Yeah.
messing with the pitcher then?
You know what? Um, who knows?
So then why in the hell would it serve Craig Counsell to do basically the opposite with his stance back in the day?
It doesn't hurt him either.
Mm.
I will tell you what, batting stances are like picking what you want to eat at night,
Mm.
right? Some days you're in the mood for certain things, some days you're not. If, it may feel good one day and the next day it sucks. When you find something that works for you, you just do it. Doesn't matter how ridiculous it looks, doesn't matter how pretty it looks, you just do it. I remember when I was probably at my prime, I had probably one of my best hitting seasons ever.
Mm.
And one of the things that I developed, and it even followed me into softball when I played with you gents. I got known by some of the umpires because I would literally kind of shake my hips like an Elvis kind of deal.
Oh yeah, you do a little Greco wiggle.
Yeah, while I was waiting for the pitcher to get in the stance because it kept me loose. It kept me not stiff and rigid. And so the pitcher could take all day if he wanted. I was just going to shake my butt while I was up there. And it helped me relax and it helped me do things. And to be honest with you, when I started doing it, I had no idea what was happening
Mm.
until the guys on the team started like, whistling and calling me out. And then the umpire got to know me and saying, "Oh, you didn't wiggle enough on that one. You missed that call." And so it became a thing. Um, I will tell you that that's when I learned that my own batting stance could change just by comfort. And again, it wasn't intentional. I had no idea I was doing it until it was called out.
That's funny.
Yeah. So yeah, Pelletier. Oh, I'm sorry, Plantier shaking his butt or squatting.
Yep.
My man was
Squatting.
working. My man was working his glutes.
Yep.
Working his glutes. Um, nobody else really. Well, I mean, Timlin.
Yep.
Timlin had a great career.
Yep.
Brett Main. As a broadcaster now, I think most people remember him. Um, Nagy had a very good career as well.
Yep.
Uh, but yeah, I mean, I would say Pudge, Knobloch, and certainly Guzman.
Mm.
I think Juan had a great career as well, or was instrumental, at least what I remember, for a period of time. Um, yeah, very interesting group for sure. All right,
I'm
next one.
I'm intrigued by the runners up more than the actual winners of the
Yeah.
92 year.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've always been a kind of a sucker for Caros.
He,
I like
he was a solid player. He was a solid player.
I liked his grittiness. In
Hmm.
fact, towards the end of his career, I don't know if actually I'm gonna look. I don't know if he finished. I think he might have, but he came to my boys. Yeah, he did. He ended his career as an A. Um, he he was one of those guys that I was kind of happy to see him on the team.
Mm.
And I believe he got into managing after. I always felt that was a good spot for him. I mean, he barely played for my guys, but I do remember him being on there and being somewhat of a breath of fresh air. I mean, he had some MVP votes in his group in his career. But yeah, Karros was always one of those guys that I respected how he.
But of course, the next two, Moises Alou, was a really, really solid player for a number of years there. I always associate him with wanting to murder Steve Bartman, though, when, that
Yeah.
whole play happens in the 03 NLCS. But then, obviously near and dear to all Sox fans' hearts, number 3 there, Timmy Wakefield, getting 24% of the vote. For a knuckleballer, one of the real like it just all things you read and hear about him just seemed like one of the real like classy stand-up guys in the league for all the time that he played, and what kind of befell him and then his wife in the last year it was just, I mean, a horrible end for a guy that seemed as solid a dude as you could ask for. Also solid a teammate. I don't know. Have you guys seen the Red Sox documentary series on Netflix?
I haven't yet. No.
Not yet.
So what I really love about that series is that it contextualizes 04 by showing you almost the entire first episode is spent focusing on 03, because I think that really enhances how special 04 was, and because of how crushing 03 was. And Tim Wakefield was a big reason for why that was such a crushing defeat, because he would have been the ALCS MVP that year if we had beat the Yankees, and yet he was the one who ended up giving up that bomb to Aaron Boone, and it was just kind of like, ugh. But a nice little kind of, closing the circle thing on that was when the Sox beat the Yankees in Game 7 in Yankee Stadium. Joe Torre specifically sought out Tim Wakefield to give him a hug and congratulate him for getting to the World Series. Remembering, at least I'm pretty sure he said in the documentary, that he just remembered how crushed he knew Tim was from the prior year, that he was happy for him, at least, even in that moment of disappointment on the Yankees' part. And he just seemed like a really great guy who really, was a master of kind of a lost art of pitching. Are there many knucklers pitching right now?
I don't know right now.
No, yeah, it's actually considered to be one of the dying pitches, and there's some folks in the minors that are going to rejuvenate or bring it back. But yeah.
Because I remember after him, R.A. Dickey was another prominent knuckleballer.
Yep.
But I don't remember many others after them that really stood out. Like, I think the most you would hear about is like a knuckle curve. But even Wakefield, my understanding was when he would grip the ball, he wouldn't even use his knuckles; he would use his fingertips.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I always think about obvious. I'm talking to Boston fans, so this isn't going to be a fantastic story. But when was it Merlone that got sent into the annals of San Diego, where
Mirabelli.
Mirabelli.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he ended up coming back from the dead.
They had to give him a police escort from the airport to get him to Fenway on time to be able to catch Wakey, because VTech was having fits trying to catch the knuckler.
Yep. Yeah. Well, it's funny too, because I tell my wife that story, and she's like, they really did that. Doesn't it seem silly? Like,
It does. It does seem silly, but we actually took baseball and the Red Sox seriously, and might still take them seriously today if they actually gave us a team worth rooting for.
you
I was
fair.
3 months before he died.
Mm. What was that, Matt?
This is the picture of me, Jake, and Wake.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's awesome.
Damn.
So
And
the other thing
and
that people don't remember is
yeah.
the league championship series in the NL when he was pitching for Pittsburgh and the Sid Bream
Mhm.
Mm,
run that scored. He was up for the MVP of that series too.
damn. And something that I hear about from him, and they kind of allude to it a little bit in the series, but you've heard a lot about it after he passed away, was that he did so much charity work and was so involved in the community that
Yep.
you just didn't hear all that much about, because he wasn't about touting it and having a camera there for it. Like, it wasn't until after the poor guy died that you heard about so much that he did. He just seemed like such a good dude.
Yeah, no, he's certainly one of the good ones. Um, Another name on that list that I want to kind of touch upon
Mm.
is another person who made some pretty good decisions, and that's Reggie Sanders.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you talk about a guy who, definitely bounced around from team to team, but made some pretty significant decisions when it came to who he picked, who he chose to play for. Um,
Yeah.
you
Oh, he
know,
was on the D-backs that beat the
yeah,
Yankees. I didn't realize that.
yeah. And not only that, the next year he signed a 1 year contract to play for the San Francisco Giants,
Oh,
who also um, World Series, right? And then he made his way to St. Louis for the 2004
Yep.
and 05. So he
in
won it in
'05.
05. Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
On the '05 team, I don't think he actually played in the series.
Mm.
But he was actually no, I think he did. I think he did. But yeah, I mean, talk about some pretty fortunate world free agent contracts.
Well, what a stat. Like, I mean, how much of that was happenstance and how much of that was a savvy
Yeah,
kind of
right,
recognition of what teams,
right.
were good fits for him that might give him a chance to win. Kind of maybe he was like the Robert Ory of baseball, where he just knew how to get on the team that was going to win the championship in a given year.
Yeah, no, in I'll tell you what, I remember when all this was happening, having discussions about how, this guy just goes to a team and wins. Um,
Mm.
and he had a terrible batting average when he came to the postseason, but I do remember some pretty significant hits. And in 64 games in the postseason, he hit 7 home runs, 25 RBIs, stole 9 bags, but struck out a ton, and hit 195 for his career.
Hmm.
So wasn't the best average in the postseason, but has some really significant hits as far as home runs go, and with guys in scoring position.
Can I just say, I think I need to also find. I need to write another strongly worded letter to the Baseball Writers Association of America when I look at the AL Rookie of the Year voting. I mean, to their credit, it's about one of the closest votes that I've seen so far in looking at these past awards. But how the hell did something named Pat Listach
Oh, you don't
win
remember Listach?
Over Kenny Lofton?
Yeah.
Come on.
Kenny Lofton. Um, and Taylor, I don't know, maybe you agree with the temperature of the league at this time, but I think the issue with Lofton kind of an issue that my boys started, where the home run ball became so sexy
Mhm.
that he was not that kind of player. And in Listach, I mean, he only had one home run that year, but I think he was a base stealer. He was one of those flashy guys. He was compared a lot to Ricky Henderson, and I don't think he was just going to live up to the hype.
Yeah.
Um, you know, Listach did have, I think, inferior stats, but
Their stats were either identical or Lofton's were better.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It was a lean year that year.
yeah. Really, I mean, there was only 4 folks who got votes.
Yeah. That's ridiculous. I'm calling shenanigans. I think the Baseball Writers Association of America should be ashamed of themselves.
I do
Idiots.
remember Listach, and he had a pretty,
I do too.
decent career. But yeah, Lofton definitely was a more accomplished player. I want to say Listach was probably a better defender,
Mm.
primarily because he played on I believe he was a shortstop for the first few years, but he didn't. I mean, I'm looking at his stats now. I just pulled them up. I mean, he certainly didn't have the career that Lofton had by any stretch of the imagination. So you're right. I mean, Listach was his rookie year he was 24. In his final year he was 29.
I mean,
So
it's one thing. It's one thing to give them a mulligan when you look at a year like when Barry Bonds was low on the list, where you look at that year and you're like, okay, I can kind of understand it. They can't tell the future about what he's going to become. But when you look at some of these years, and so it was also the case with Robbie Alomar, where he didn't win it over some other jobber, where you're like, how did that happen? And when they have stats that are just as good, if not better, in the year, it's just it makes me wonder what sort of like politicking was going on or what other like drama was happening maybe behind the scenes that led to the votes being different than they should have been.
well, I'll tell you what. If you ever want to take an award away from Sabo and give it to Alomar,
I know I'd
I'm
have
all
your
for it. You're not going to hear an argument from me.
Well, there's certainly no doubt about the next year's ones.
I
yeah,
would agree with that.
particularly Piazza. Yikes, that might be one of the most like bright, like shining uh bingos of any rookie of the year candidate. And sure enough, he was unanimous with the first place
Yeah,
votes. Yeah.
yeah, and I mean for him being a um, what was his draft part like 5,000 something a favor for Lasorda.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, what a find Mike Piazza was. Now, let
Ooh,
me ask you this.
Pedro though was up that year. Pedro got a few votes.
Yeah, he had a few votes, but I mean,
Mhm.
66 games, not the
And
sec.
five.
Oh, I forgot. So he was on the Dodgers
Yeah,
because he was originally on with his brother Ramon, right?
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and he got moved to the Dodgers. Now, real quick, Piazza. We brought up grumblings about Bagwell with steroids.
Mm.
There's certainly more smoke, even in his playing career with Piazza. We're waxing poetic that this is, certainly, he should have got 100%. Where are we on that with Piazza?
Hmm.
I guess I look at him differently because he's a catcher.
I was just about to say that, and I know Greco, you've touched on that too, where catchers it almost needs to get weighted a little differently because of all the wear and tear that
So,
position results
so
in.
you look at him differently because there's, potential that he did steroids, but it's less egregious because he's a catcher than it is he was a center fielder or a pitcher.
Possibly. I never. I don't remember there being a lot of smoke around him. I'm not saying there wasn't. I think maybe it was the other names that were more kind of paramount to me, I guess.
Well, I'll tell you that, I think more of the smoke around him was the fact that he was a catcher and he was so good at having those offensive numbers.
Yeah.
And he did have as long of a career as he did.
Mm.
Um, and I think that certainly helps.
Oh,
And I also think it was kind of a guilty by association, but there was certainly more talk about him than there ever was about Bagwell during his playing career.
Sure.
I for I forgot that he ended his career with your boys there.
Yeah, with the A's, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I remember those well. I was very happy to have him. I was happy to have him, Nomar, Frank Thomas, Eric Karros.
Wait, Nomar ended up on the A's?
You don't remember that?
What? I think I lost track of him after he ripped his quad into oblivion, or like his groin trying to like run out of the batter's box in
Listen,
when he was with the Cubs.
we had a good run of former Boston shortstops.
Huh.
Ending most recently with Jed Lowry.
Oh yes.
Yep.
Yeah. But I'll tell you, no, Nomar was very serviceable for us as a DH and second baseman, third baseman, first baseman for a few years at the end of his career.
My gosh, Oakland is kind of like like Major League Baseball's nursery and graveyard all in one.
Listen, you start here, you die here. You know what it is? Is that we can't afford you while you're in your prime and good, but we'll suck the rest out of whatever you have left out of you for pennies on the dollar. Right? But I mean, he had a great career. I loved having Piazza on the team. I remember him, specifically mentoring a guy like a Derek Norris or, he was there for Kurt Suzuki, some of those guys, and I think that he was a pretty good mentor for them, and he was a really good teammate. He had some pretty clutch hits for us too. I mean, he still had some pop. And yeah, I was happy to have Piazza on my team. I certainly enjoyed it. Certainly enjoyed it. So Greg McMichael, pitcher, had a
Beaver.
deep career.
Yep.
Wasn't anything, significant, but I mean, well, I can't say that because he pitched for Atlanta in some pretty important games. So that's pretty short-sighted of me. But yeah, he was a good pitcher. Conine, I remember for a while, in Florida. I think he was probably one of the first guys that they drafted that really was part of their relevance, if I remember correctly.
He's Mr. Marlin.
Yeah, he is Mr. Marlin. I forgot that's actually what they called him, so I'm glad I said that. I mean, he played 162 games as a rookie for him. That's pretty damn good right there. I don't remember Chuck Carr for them that much.
Leadoff hitter.
Oh, wait, maybe. Yeah. I mean, 58 stolen bases. It's pretty good.
Yep.
Looks like it led the league in that year too. Al Martin, I'm not remembering too much. I remember Kevin Stoker. Will Cordero.
Fredo Cordero. He was on the Sox for a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Kirk Reuter, I remember him. Carlos Garcia. I remember him. I don't remember Pedro Martinez.
Who's that again?
Yeah.
Probably a flash in the pan. I don't know if I even get a vote.
Yeah.
Steve Cook. Oh yeah, well he was definitely better than Pedro.
Yeah.
Ricky Gutierrez. Gutierrez, I should say. Yes, I remember Ricky. Um, he was
He was a
one of those
burner on the
guys.
base pass, wasn't he?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I think he was one of those guys that would get moved around a bit. Um, he was like one of those trade deadline kind of guys. Um, yeah, I guess maybe only once when he went from Cleveland to the Mets. Um, but I think I remember that being a fairly significant trade. So yeah, I mean this year, I agree with you, Rolo. I mean, you can't do better than Piazza. And as much as I hate the Angels, Salmon was just the problem.
Salmon was a heavy hitter.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, when you look at the
Heavy hitter.
names, Jason Berry, I remember Aaron Seeley,
Yeah.
uh, Wayne Kirby, I remember him.
Mm-hmm.
Rich Amaro, I remember him. Brent Gates, I remember him because he was one of my boys. Um, Troy Neal, I remember him because he was my boys, but I don't think anybody else does. Um, Jerry DePoto, I think we know him for a different reason now, right?
I don't know. I remember him being a left-handed pitcher.
Okay, yeah. Um,
Oh, he's right. He's a right-handed pitcher.
yeah, but he's got some front office jobs now.
Oh,
You don't remember this? Hold on.
No.
Let me just make sure I'm not talking on my ass because you're scaring me now. I figured you guys would know this. I figured you guys would know this. Jerry DePoto. Okay, yeah, I was right. Okay, so he's the Mariners president of baseball operations. He is the guy who
Uh-huh.
will make trades with anybody for anything. And I think I don't want to say this is an actual thing, but I want to say he's probably the biggest wheeling and dealing general managers, baseball presidents of all time. My man will trade you his grandmother. Will trade you his grandmother. Oh, somebody's on delay.
Uh-oh. Yeah, I know. I'm hearing like a echo.
I think it's Taylor's turn on delay.
Uh-oh. I know. I'm hearing.
All right. So
I think it's me.
I think it's Taylor's turn.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so I what was that? So yeah, so I all right. You know what?
This might be the universe telling us that it's time to call it.
Yeah, I think technical difficulties are starting to creep up on
This might
us.
be the universe telling us that it's time to call it.
Yeah, I think technical difficulties are starting to creep up on us. Wow.
So it's not just me.
I feel as though, at least on my side, I feel like I'm the clean one. But I'll tell you what, I feel as though, at least on my side, I think I'm the clean one. But I'll tell you what, it's funny. I feel like I have to wait for myself to finish talking. So it's funny. I feel like I have to wait for myself to finish talking. So what I think we should do is let's call it here. What I think we should, and then here, and then we'll pick back up in then 1990. And then we'll pick back up, talk a little bit more about salmon, and just go on from there. Sound good, boys? Talk a little bit more about salmon and go on from there. Sound good, boys? All right, gents. The internet gods have said you're done. Oh,
Whoa, Matt was ready to peace out.
yeah, the problem child has left
Yep.
us. So Rolo, this was a wacky one.
Oh yeah,
I left about 4 or 5 times. Well, no, twice.
catching feral cats out in the neighborhood.
Right. Rolo froze and disappeared.
Mhm.
And now Mr. Taylor became a parrot. And
Yeah, we kind
citing
of got
everything. Yeah.
sucked into a like internet speed vortex of some kind that was just kind of like starting to tear a hole in the space-time continuum, I think.
Yep. But I'll tell you what, looking ahead a little bit, maybe not the next year, but the next few years, there's certainly some meat on the bones with
Oh yeah.
the Rookie of the Year votes.
Oh yeah.
So this may be a good time to call it out, and we'll look to try to revisit this next week. And until then, gentlemen, because the other one's gone, it's been real. See you next Tuesday.
Keep waving it fair.